A cable car accident in India killed 3, including 2 who fell from a helicopter while being rescued by authorities.
After 3 cars crashed into one another, Air Force helicopters were immediately deployed to help the victims dangling in mid-air. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am CJ Hirro.
And I am Nina Ricci, Alagao, Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines.
European Union foreign ministers failed to find consensus on a 6th round of sanctions against Russia. 42 dead following landslides caused by tropical depression Agaton. Fresh clashes between Israeli soldiers and Palestinian militants have rocked the West Bank city of Jenin. Los Angeles Lakers head coach fired after missing the NBA playoffs. And BTS fans share concert experience in Las Vegas.
European Union foreign ministers failed to find a consensus on talks of another round of sanctions against Russia. The bloc's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, said the discussion includes sanctions on oil and gas. Pointing to an anticipated massive Russian assault on the eastern Donbas region, Borrell said the main focus now needs to be on providing more military aid to Kyiv. During their meeting on April 11, the EU ministers who gathered in Luxembourg were also due to meet with the International Criminal Court's Karim Khan. The said chief prosecutor opened war crimes investigations into atrocities that have happened in Ukraine.
The most defenseless victims of the conflict in Ukraine are the country's children. The UN had confirmed that at least 142 children have been killed and 229 were injured in the fighting. According to a UNICEF official, Manuel Fontan, 2 out of 3 Ukrainian children have lost their homes. And of more than 3 million children who still remain in their homes, nearly half may be at risk of not having enough food.
2/3 of the children population of Ukraine is displaced right now. I mean, almost pretty much two-thirds of them. And that's in a matter of 6 weeks. So I was saying to the Security Council that in my 31 years as a humanitarian, I don't recall a situation that went so bad so fast and needs being so high so fast.
At a nonprofit shelter in Tijuana, Mexico, Latin American migrants fleeing violence at home feel forgotten. Some Latinos wait months for news on their asylum application in the United States. Meanwhile, hundreds of Ukrainians are encouraged by a promise from Washington that it is prepared to welcome up to 100,000 Ukrainians who have fled the war. Being housed at a sports facility near the U.S.-Mexico border, they await the processing of their applications at the border.
No sé, pues pienso que nosotros también nos merecemos una oportunidad para estar allá. Pues que nos permitan ingresar porque nosotros también venimos huyendo. Es diferente de lo que estamos huyendo, pero casi es una guerra con las pandillas.
A Palestinian stabbed a police officer with a kitchen knife before he was shot dead in the Israeli port city of Ashkelon. The attack comes amid a rising tide of violence among Israelis and Palestinians. 4 shooting, stabbing, and car ramming attacks in Israeli cities have left 14 people dead since late March. Over the same period, Israeli forces killed 15 Palestinians, including assailants, according to an AFP tally. On Sunday, Israeli security forces killed a Palestinian woman who stabbed a policeman in the center of Hebron, where around 1,000 Jewish settlers live under heavy military protection among 200,000 Palestinians. The same day, the army shot and killed an unarmed Palestinian woman who they said failed to heed warning shots near the West Bank town of Bethlehem. The incidents came as Israeli forces round up suspects in the northern West Bank after a man from Jenin shot and killed 3 people in Tel Aviv.
Disaster officials in the Philippines are still validating reports of 42 killed in landslides and flooding across the central and southern Philippines after Tropical Depression Agaton dumped heavy rains and disrupted travel ahead of the long holiday. In a video shot by resident Hana Calavitangcol from Bunga village in the central city of Baybay, houses were seen buried in mud after heavy rains triggered a landslide. Local authorities said Leyte was among the hardest hit, with landslides leaving 36 people dead. Rescuers hampered by mud and rain searched for survivors of landslides that smashed into villages in the central Philippines. More than 17,000 people fled their homes as the storm pummeled the disaster-prone region in recent days, flooding houses, severing roads, and knocking out power. 3 people were also killed in the central province of Negros Oriental and 3 on the southern or main southern island of Mindanao, according to the National Disaster Agency.
Crisis-stricken Sri Lanka defaulted on its $51 billion external debt, calling the move a last resort after running out of foreign exchange to import desperately needed goods. The island nation is grappling with its worst economic downturn since independence, with regular blackouts and acute shortages of food and fuel. Sri Lanka's finance ministry said in a statement that creditors, including foreign governments, were free to capitalize any interest payments due to them from Tuesday or opt for payback in Sri Lankan rupees. The crisis has caused widespread misery for Sri Lankans, 22 million people, and led to weeks of anti-government protests. Sri Lanka had sought debt relief from India and China, but both countries instead offered more credit lines to buy commodities for them.
This is against the prevailing political system in Sri Lanka. So people are fighting because they have been fed up of this system for a long time, not just a year or two, like we have been fed up for a very long time. And now it's the time for us to get together and just shout out to act against this corrupted system.
A cable car accident at an Indian pilgrimage site left at least 3 dead, while over 40 passengers were rescued. The fatalities include a man and a woman who fell from a helicopter during rescue operations. The rescue were carried out by the combined teams of the Indian Air Force, Army, Indo-Tibetan Border Police, and National Disaster Response Force. Around 48 people were traveling along a steep incline leading up to the Trikut Hills in eastern Jharkhand state when 3 cars crashed into one another. The tourists were trapped mid-air for about 40 hours before they were rescued. Rescue operations had to be stopped after sunset because the ropeway runs through a thickly forested area which is difficult to access except by air.
In other news, 14-year-old Nathan Renz Chesters, whose body was not or has not been recovered, was confirmed to have died by his British father, Adrian Peter Chesters. The Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency said in a statement the teenager was too weak and could not survive the strong sea waves. Police also said that Indonesian authorities would take over the search as he had likely drifted into their waters. The father and son were in a group of 4 divers who went missing on Wednesday afternoon on a training dive near the small island of Tokong Sanggol. The elder Chesters and Alexia Alessandra Molina from France were rescued by fishermen some 100 kilometers south of where they went missing. The group's instructor, Christine Grodem from Norway, was earlier rescued about 22 nautical miles away from their last location. Now, meanwhile, the boat operator who took them to the dive site was detained after testing positive for drugs. Coming up, Belgium shuts down Kinder chocolate factory suspected to be behind a wave of salmonella cases in Europe and the U.S. Mexico City's gas tank graveyard frightens residents. Unbearable odor and fear of explosion make their lives a nightmare. And U.S. President Joe Biden announces crackdown on hard-to-trace ghost guns. These stories and more when Mata ng Agila International returns.
This portion is brought to you by Quezon City Motor Vehicle Inspection Center, Robig Builders.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Bad news for American consumers. Consumer prices have been rising rapidly in the last month. The Consumer Price Index for March is expected to take a big jump. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says the Russian invasion of Ukraine is to blame.
We expect March CPI headline inflation to be extraordinarily elevated due to Putin's price hike. And we expect a large difference between core and headline inflation, reflecting the global disruptions in energy and food markets.
In the last year, inflation has gone up 7.9%, the biggest increase in 4 decades.
U.S. President Joe Biden has announced new restrictions on so-called ghost guns. These are firearms that can be assembled at home in a matter of minutes. The weapons have no serial number, making them difficult to trace. Under the new rules, dealers selling these gun kits will be required to do background checks on prospective buyers. Biden expects opposition from groups such as the National Rifle Association, who will say the measure is extreme.
Well, let me ask you, is it extreme to protect police officers, extreme to protect our children, extreme to keep guns out of the hands of people who couldn't even pass a background check? Look, the idea that someone on a terrorist list could purchase one of these guns is extreme. It isn't extreme, just basic common sense.
Additionally, Biden wants Congress to make universal background checks for gun owners. He also wants assault weapons and high-capacity magazines banned.
At a former refinery in Mexico City, thousands of disused gas cylinders sit outside under the sun and produce a foul smell that neighbors say has made their lives a nightmare. Almost every night, residents leave their apartments because the smell is so strong and unbearable, like the stove isn't turned off properly. There are also fears that the liquefied petroleum gas, or LPG, seeping from the cylinders will cause an explosion or make them sick. Made up mainly of butane and propane, LPG is odorless. So producers add mercaptan to give it a nauseating smell that allows it to be detected. According to Ricardo Torres, an expert at the National Autonomous University of Mexico, this does not only cause headaches and vomiting. LPG also contributes to the formation of ozone, which at ground level is a harmful pollutant for people and the environment. Mexican civil protection authorities did not respond to a request for information about the risks posed by the cylinders.
U.S. President Joe Biden has urged Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi not to increase the amount of oil India buys from Russia. Modi nonetheless did not indicate his country would stop buying Russian oil. The two met virtually for about an hour on Monday. Meanwhile, in the U.S. Capitol, Secretary of State Antony Blinken held a joint news conference with his Indian counterpart, Subrahmanyam Jaishankar. Blinken echoed Biden's message that democracy should stand together to face down Russian President Vladimir Putin.
In our judgment, it is important that all countries, especially those with leverage, press Putin to end the war. And it's also important that democracies stand together and speak with one voice to defend the values that we share. And we do share profoundly the values of freedom, openness, independence, sovereignty, and those values need to apply everywhere.
Meanwhile, the Indian minister says that his country buys only a minimal amount of oil from Russia.
If you are looking at energy purchases from Russia, I would suggest that your attention should be focused on Europe, which probably we do buy some energy which is necessary for our energy security. But I suspect, looking at the figures, probably our total purchases for the month would be less than what Europe does in an afternoon.
How are civilians injured in the war in eastern Ukraine being handled? Doctors Without Borders has stepped up and organized hospital trains. Wounded and elderly patients being evacuated from embattled towns and cities are loaded onto a train that has been converted to a mobile hospital. The most recent train, the fourth one organized so far, brought 48 people to the western city of Lviv after a long overnight trip. Once there, they are taken to the hospital for further medical care. The doctors say the trains will continue as long as possible. For those fortunate enough to board the hospital on rails, it is a relief. For hundreds of others left on the platform, there is only the hope that there will be another train to take them to safety.
A dust storm that has swept through much of Iraq has left dozens of people hospitalized with respiratory problems. The storm erupted in the north of the country, prompting the cancellation of flights serving Arbil, the capital of the autonomous Kurdistan region. As the storm swept south, it shrouded Baghdad and cities as far south as Nasiriyah in a ghostly orange. The director of Iraq's meteorological office, Amaral Ajabri, said that while dust storms were not uncommon in Iraq, they are becoming more frequent due to drought, desertification, and declining rainfall. Iraq is particularly vulnerable to climate change, having already witnessed record low rainfall and high temperatures in recent years. Experts have said these factors threaten social and economic disaster in the war-scarred country.
Still in Iraq, plastic garbage clogs the banks of its Tigris River, but an army of young volunteers is cleaning up a stretch of it. This is deemed a rare environmental project in the war-battered country. Azam Alush, head of a non-government group, estimated that 5 million cubic meters of debris end up in the Tigris and Euphrates rivers every day. Noting that Iraq has no modern waste management system, he said people just throw their waste on the streets instead of using garbage disposal bins. Much of the garbage is burned, which pollutes the air. Alush has thus organized an army of volunteers to clean up the banks of the Tigris. Armed with boots and gloves, his cleanup ambassadors pick up soggy trash, brittle water bottles, aluminum cans, and muddy styrofoam containers.
A Kinder chocolate factory in Belgium has been ordered to close after it was linked to dozens of salmonella cases. The order came after more than 60 people in the UK, mostly young children, became infected with salmonella in an outbreak linked to Kinder Surprise eggs. Germany and France have also reported suspected salmonella cases linked to Kinder chocolate. Food safety authorities in Belgium have instructed the recall of all Kinder products made at Arlon's factory. Singapore, Ireland, and Hong Kong have also widened the recall of Kinder products causing salmonella. The recall includes all Kinder Surprise, Kinder Egg, Hunt Kit, Kinder Surprise Maxi, Kinder Mini Eggs, and Kinder Chocobons products. Next on Mata ng Agila International, Russian President Vladimir Putin's mysterious Facebook superfans on a mission to portray him as a benevolent, animal-loving leader. Climate protest in Switzerland brings traffic to a halt. And NASA set to explore a massive metal asteroid that's worth way more than our global economy. Stay tuned for more news around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns.
This portion is brought to you by 318 Automart, Arlex Trading and Construction Supplies.
Ano ang pinakamalaking mammal? Blue whale. So, sinasagot ko lang kasi alam po hindi mo alam.
Boyfriend ko nga po pala, si Jeffoy. May maayos ka bang trabaho?
Nag-aayos po ako ng aircon.
Makakapanayan po natin na isang star witness sa isang hold-upan na naganap, si alias Boyan. Paano ka nakarating doon?
Kasi sir...
Christopher!
Ay, teka muna. Sino yun?
Nay!
Shh! Sino naman yung kausap mo, Christopher?
Huwag tawagin yung pangalan ko, Nay.
Sa studio o kahit naka-work from home, hindi magpapapigil sa pagtalakay sa napapanahong issue at hanapin ang maiinit na balitang kailangan nating malaman.
Kami pong dalawa ay may sakit. Now, more than ever, kailangan po ninyo ang tamang informasyon.
Asahan ninyong laging hahanapan ng kasagutan ang lahat ng mga ASPN nyo.
So ngayon, ang pakiusap ngayon, ang Pangulong Duterte sana ay mag-call ng special session ng Kongreso para ito po ay maipasa itong panukala ninyo. Ano po ang balita doon? May update na po ba tayo?
Ano sa palagay nyo? Kasama si Ali Soto at Pat Pidaza. Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 8 ng umaga. Simulcast niyong mapapanood sa Net25 TV, Facebook at YouTube channel. Radyo Agila 1062 AM.
We're open for business, giving MSMEs the latest market trends and business opportunities. Open for business, only on Net25.
Kung kayo po ay may nais na isumbong sa inyong lugar, problema sa lipunan na gusto niyo pong paaksyonan, mag-text sa 0956-867-1833 o mag-email sa responde@net25.com. Pwede rin kayo magpadala ng mensahe sa ating pong Facebook page at Net25 TV. Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi. Ito ang Responde, Mata ng Mamamayan.
Araw-araw may bagong kaalaman. Dahil sa Tony Knows, everybody knows! Your Kuya Tony Petgaba na hindi naubusan ng tips. Siyempre, from DIY to life hacks, sagot ko na yan. Saan ka pa? Let's all play together. Let's have fun together. Tara na, sumali at makigulo sa aming Kada Challenge. Sa kada umaga, kompleto na ang inyong umaga.
Ang mga pinakamaiinit na issue, pangyayaring nakakaapekto sa lipunan, mga kaganapan sa politika, tatalakayin, lilinawin dito sa Saganang Mamamayan. Kasama si Jenso Barjaga,
iba't ibang klase ng gamot na kung tawagin natin ay OTC.
Nelson Lubao,
ay hindi mo na kailangan magreseta.
At mga espesyal na co-host, Senator Francis Tolentino.
Ano po yung ginagawa ngayon, yung kabalita hakbangin ng COMELEC?
Tourism Advocate Bobby Joseph.
We can get around 12 to 15% of GDP.
At ang tinaguriang pambansang basurero, Benny Antiporta.
Tinulungan po sila ng ating Pangulo, binigyan ng lupa, yung mga IT.
Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 10 hanggang alas 11 ng umaga, Saganang Mamamayan.
this, just in at least 13 people have been injured during a shooting incident at a subway station in the New York City borough of Brooklyn. A New York police spokeswoman in Brooklyn said at 8:27, police responded to a 911 call of a person shot in the subway. The city's fire department gave the injuries toll, with police sources saying at least 5 people had been shot.
The United States announced it had ordered all non-essential employees at its Shanghai consulate to leave, while voicing concerns of the safety of Americans in China. A spokesman from its Beijing embassy said in a statement that the order came from the U.S. State Department due to ongoing COVID-19 outbreak. The State Department said they will reduce the number of employees and scale down their operations in the area as they deal with the changing circumstances on the ground. China has hit back against the United States' complaints about the Shanghai lockdown, with Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian slamming its groundless accusations over the weekend and insisting that China's policy was scientific and effective. China has stuck tightly to a policy of zero COVID, aiming to eliminate infections through rigid lockdowns, mass testing, and travel restrictions. But the policy has come under strain since March, as more than 100,000 cases in Shanghai have led to a lockdown of the city's 25 million inhabitants, sparking widespread public outcry over food shortages and an inflexible policy of sending anyone who tests positive to quarantine centers.
Locals and tourists hit the streets of the old city of Nicosia as Cyprus begins lifting its COVID-19 restrictions. According to the Ministry of Health, people on the Mediterranean island are no longer required to wear a mask indoors. Vaccinated tourists will also be allowed into the country without taking a COVID-19 test. On the other hand, unvaccinated travelers will have to provide a negative 24-hour antigen test or a 72-hour PCR test.
The World Health Organization, or WHO, reported that 65% of the world's healthcare workers are now vaccinated against COVID-19. This was confirmed by Kate O'Brien, Director of the Department of Immunization, Vaccines, and Biologicals at the WHO. O'Brien said they will still pursue to achieve the 100% target.
So this is a very good start. It's more than a start. It's a very good advancement. And when that 65% is divided into when you look at that by region or you look at it by income strata, there are differences across regions, certainly.
Albania's former Stalin city is being transformed into a modern NATO airbase, a symbol of Albania's westward shift. The renovation project was agreed upon in 2019 by the Balkan state and NATO, which has already committed $59 million to the project. Construction began at the beginning of the year, ahead of Russia's February 24 invasion of Ukraine that has sparked fears of a spillover into NATO and EU member states. NATO officials believed the renovation of the military base, due to be completed in 2023, will give the alliance an important strategic facility in the Western Balkans within short reach of the Mediterranean, Middle East, and the Black Sea region. After decades of global isolation, Albania became a NATO member in 2009. The country embraced the West after the fall of the communist regime in 1990 and today is eager to become an EU member.
A network of Facebook groups run by people who support Russian President Vladimir Putin would like to change perceptions of the country's leader. The Putin fans on Facebook continuously post content showing the Russian leader walking confidently, holding puppies, staring longingly into the camera, saluting troops, and riding an array of wild animals, including bears and lions. The Institute for Strategic Dialogue, or ISD, has identified 10 pro-Putin public groups that have more than 650,000 members between them. But ISD research also found out that most of these Facebook accounts who support President Putin are running duplicate accounts, which can be potential violation of Facebook's rules on inauthentic behavior.
Indonesia's parliament passed its landmark sexual violence bill aimed at providing a legal framework for victims to secure justice in a country where sexual abuse has mostly been regarded as a private matter. Majority of lawmakers backed the bill at the plenary session, overcoming opposition from some conservative groups in the world's biggest Muslim-majority country after 6 years of deliberation. Speaker of the House, Puan Maharani, said the lawmakers or the law makes hope that the implementation of the law will resolve sexual violence cases. The bill has been broadly welcomed by activists, and President Joko Widodo supports the parliament's move, saying that the bill would make it easier to build cases and secure convictions.
Teachers said they no longer want police to be stationed in schools after outrage over the treatment of a 15-year-old black schoolgirl known as Child Q. The National Education Union, or NEQ, members voted for the removal of the senior Met Police officers involved in the case. Delegates backed a motion that said calling the police to deal with pupils must be a last resort for schools and teachers. The move comes after Child Q was strip-searched due to false allegations of possessing illegal drugs at a London school in 2020. A safeguarding report found the search was unjustified, with racism a likely factor.
Upset with government inaction over climate change, environmental activists in Switzerland blocked a major highway. The 4 people who went to sit on the highway said the country is in a situation of absolute crisis. They pointed out that Switzerland has no concrete plan to meet climate change commitments and reduce CO2 emissions. The protesters were asking the Federal Council to take the first, simplest, and most obvious step to find a solution to the climate crisis. Ensure that 1 million houses in Switzerland be insulated by 2040. Traffic came to a halt as a handful of demonstrators sat down on the highway holding a banner reading "Renovate Switzerland."
Scientists say that climate change fueled heavier rainfall during a series of storms that battered southern Africa earlier this year. The southern African region was hit by 3 cyclones and 2 tropical storms in just 6 weeks. It began in January when storms Anna caused widespread damage in Madagascar, Mozambique, and Malawi. World Weather Attribution said that in total, more than 1 million people were affected by extreme rainfall and floods in the region, with 230 reported deaths. The scientists behind the study urged the global leaders to curb climate change or suffer its damaging consequences.
NASA is getting set to launch an unmanned spacecraft to explore the Psyche asteroid. Now, this might be the home of Iron Man, because unlike other orbiting objects in the solar system, Psyche is not composed of rocks or ice. It is made of mostly metal. Psyche project manager Henry Stone said they hope to launch in August, adding that it's going to take them about 3.5 years to get there. Stone explained that Psyche is in the main asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Up next, Los Angeles Lakers part ways with head coach Frank Vogel. BTS Army shares concert experience in Las Vegas.
Boys together with the Army.
And Madonna's Material Girl dress and Cobain's Teen Spirit guitar up for auction. Stay updated on sports and entertainment when Mata ng Agila International returns after the short break.
This portion is brought to you by SCCI Management and Insurance Agency Corporation and Source Alliance.
Welcome to Mobile Legends!
This portion is brought to you by Canrev Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Services offered: supply and installation of elevators, escalators, air conditioners, ventilators, jet towel hand dryers, generators, access control system, factory automation and modernization. For more information, please contact Ami Kanke.
One of the biggest or largest private employers in the United States, tech giant Amazon, now faces a growing call by its workers to unionize. In New York, our business correspondent Bobby Soriano has the story.
1 week after their win in New York, members of Amazon's first union in the United States say their fight is far from over.
We are a union. 3.
During a press conference in front of Amazon's Staten Island JFK 8 warehouse, leaders of Amazon's first union in the U.S. say they have been contacted by workers from over 100 buildings nationwide and plan to organize a national call with them in May. They also called out Amazon's objections to last week's poll, calling it a blatant tactic to stall the certification.
It's just a blatant tactic to stall our certification and try to force the workers to lose morale, have them lose faith in the process. But they're just delaying the inevitable. The ALU is too strong to be, pushed back by something like this.
Amazon, the second largest private employer in the United States, has been subject to more calls by its workers to unionize after poor working conditions were reported during the start of the pandemic. The company in the past has been able to persuade workers from unionizing, but after last week's successful vote, industry analysts are now considering how a national movement to unionize would affect the company's labor costs. Shares of Amazon are down over 9% since the union vote last week. Bobby Soriano, Mata ng Agila International, New York, New York. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Los Angeles Lakers did what many had expected after the team missed making the playoffs this NBA season. They hired coach Frank Vogel. The team announced this in a statement yesterday afternoon. Lakers general manager Rob Pelinka said it was an incredibly difficult decision to make, but one the organization feels is necessary at this point. The Lakers finished this NBA season in 11th place in the Western Conference with a disappointing record of 33 wins and 49 losses. Much was expected of the Lakers, who had a lineup that included all-star players LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook. This is the first time since 2019 that the Lakers have not reached the playoffs. It marks only the fourth time that LeBron James has failed to reach the postseason since he entered the league in 2003. Vogel was the 27th head coach in franchise history. He spent only 3 years with the Lakers. He did lead the Lakers to their 17th NBA championship during the 2019-2020 bubble season.
Now, New York Yankees top prospect Anthony Volpe, now batting his way to the big league, shared with Matanang Agila International his thoughts on the mental health of athletes in the very demanding world of sports. Carlo Valdez reports.
Champions are made to be legends. They grow, they win, they conquer, and they leave a legacy. One of sports' most iconic teams, the New York Yankees, are a prime example of where champions become legends. A great opportunity for Anthony Volpe to start and finish his career with a team that has won 27 World Series titles. Legends love to win and hate to lose. That mindset, however, can take a toll on an athlete, physically and mentally. The mental side of sports is equally as important as the physical side, says Anthony.
I just love winning. I hate losing. I just want to win, and I just try and do anything I can to help the team win. I think the mental side of the game is just as important, if not even more important than the physical side. So I think that's what happens when you start worrying about the results.
Despite the challenges and hurdles that come with being a professional athlete, Anthony's mother, Isabel, always reminds her son to stay grounded and humble.
You know, we always tell him to be stay grounded. He's made it, but he hasn't made it to where he wants to be at. The game of baseball can't be bigger than him, or he can't be bigger than the game of baseball. He's done a good job, trying to, stay humble.
Athletes always want to leave a legacy, and for Anthony, he wants to be remembered for his hard work.
I guess I would just want to be remembered as, like I said, someone who always hustles, works really hard, and would kind of do anything to help the team win. Not only on the field, but off the field, I guess, too. So I guess that's kind of the legacy I'd want to leave.
Discipline, determination, and humility are some characteristics of champions. Qualities that Anthony Volpe has to cement himself to the great baseball career. Carlo Valdez, Matanang Agila International, New Jersey. Trusted, connected, on point.
In Las Vegas, Nevada, BTS fans share with us how the K-pop group's most recent concert series in the United States had them feeling good and giddy. Bureau Chief Anna Kui reports.
Whether you're a regular BTS fan, ARMY, or not, it's hard not to get caught up in the excitement happening here in Las Vegas since the K-pop superstars arrived in town. Even days before their Grammys live performance, BTS, also known as the Bangtan Boys, together with their ARMY, seemed to have taken over the city. Marquees and properties at the famous Las Vegas Strip were lit purple the night before their first out of 4 sold-out Permission to Dance concert, with welcoming signage for the South Korean sensation group and its fan club ARMY. Fans have also been gathering at the Fountains of Bellagio water show while they feature the group's hit songs Butter and Dynamite. Now, what else is happening here in town? To provide the ARMY with the full-on BTS experience, you can see here at Area 15 an immersive art and entertainment venue that is hosting a free pop-up space filled with exclusive BTS merchandise and curated installations. We caught up with some ARMY members who talked about their experience being here in Las Vegas, enjoying the BTS concert.
And it was like, oh my gosh, they're so amazing, they're so beautiful, they're just great human beings.
Every show's different.
And it's always different, and it's just awestruck.
And being part of what Las Vegas has welcomed everybody, that's been kind of fun.
Right.
The BTS is awesome. Awesome. It's beautiful. It's awesome.
BTS just finished the first 2 of their 4 sold-out events at Allegiant Stadium this past weekend, and their fans are counting the days before they see them again on April 15 and 16. So, you went to the concert this past weekend?
Yes, I did. I went twice.
Wow, and then you're planning to go again this weekend?
I sure am. My love for them is unconditional.
Anna Kui, Matanang Agila International, Las Vegas, Nevada. Trusted, connected, on point.
Selma Blair became famous for her roles like in Legally Blonde film, the TV sitcom Zoe, Duncan, Jack and Jane, and for her portrayal of Kris Jenner in American Crime Story. But the mother and actress struggled behind the scenes with the autoimmune disease multiple sclerosis, or MS, for years before receiving a diagnosis in 2018. MS attacking Blair's brain and spinal cord began taking a toll on her life when she started experiencing massive fatigue. But it seems like nothing can keep the actress down. She is an active advocate and speaker for MS and the wider disabled community. She also continues to act.
One of Madonna's most famous dresses will be auctioned off, while Kurt Cobain's guitar is expected to be sold for up to $500,000. Julian's Auctions exhibits the hot pink satin outfit worn by Madonna in her 1985 Material Girl music video, which will be up for auction on May 20 in New York City. According to Martin Nolan, the executive director of Julian's Auctions, Madonna's gown could fetch up to $200,000.
Yeah, the beautiful pink gown, satin gown itself with the belt, and then that very famous iconic pink bow at the back, so recognizable. You have the opera gloves, if you will, and then the diamante bracelets, and again the white faux fur stole.
Also on auction is Kurt Cobain's blue Fender Mustang, seen in the iconic Smells Like Teen Spirit video. The auction house said Cobain's guitar could go for $400,000 to $600,000. He said that the item could set a world record.
I'm so excited about it because it's Kurt Cobain's guitar from that very famous music video, Smells Like Teen Spirit, 1991, cover of the album Nevermind, Nirvana's second album, massively successful.
Smells like money. Well, Chris Hemsworth and Elsa Pataky were photographed leaving the popular spot Harvest Deli with their daughter India Rose and their spiny bearded dragon who rested on Pataky's shoulder. Take a look. Now, this is not the first time the power couple has taken their spiny reptilian pet out for an exciting day in town. In 2019, they were also seen grabbing frozen yogurt together while the lizards looked happy hanging out on top of the star's table. The family are big animal lovers. The Thor star once quipped on Instagram that he started a new side hustle as a pet detective, wrangling all his son's pets, a mini alligator, a bunny, a chicken, and parakeets.
Allow history to give us a sense of wonder and astonishment about the world. Here are some of today's historical events. On April 12, 1942, Japan killed about 400 Filipino officers in Bataan, also known as the Pantingan River Massacre. The mass execution of the officers and non-commissioned officers of the 91st, 71st, and 51st Divisions was led by the Imperial Japanese Army while en route from Bagak to Limay, Bataan. In 1945, U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt died at the age of 63. Being the only president elected to the office 4 times, Roosevelt led the United States through 2 of the greatest crises of the 20th century, the Great Depression and World War II. In 1961, Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first man to travel into space and orbit the planet. The only statement attributed to Gagarin during his 1 hour and 48 minutes in space was, "Flight is proceeding normally. I am well."
And as we wind up tonight's broadcast, well, here is a quote from American author Stephen King. "There is no harm in hoping for the best as long as you're prepared for the worst."
And I think our generation is experiencing its worst, which are, well, the
That's
COVID-19
true.
pandemic
That's
and
true.
the war that's going on in some places in the world, such as Russia and Ukraine.
A lot of places in the world, actually. But, you know, I am the kind of person who looks at a glass half full.
Me too.
Yeah, so, you know, you actually have no choice because you cannot control whatever is happening around you, but you can control yourself.
Yes.
And you can only hope that you don't run out of hope.
Exactly. Always looking forward to better days.
Always looking forward to better days.
Yeah.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I'm CJ Hirro.
And I'm Nina Ricci, Alagao, Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
This program is supported by SMC Global Power.
Ikaw ba si Dindo?
Opo. Hindi ko na nga alam. Kung saan ako lalapit?
Yes po. Sino po to? Sige po, makakarating po.
Ano yun?
Dumating na yung first schedule ng preliminary hearing nyo.
Ayos, anak ka. Saan ba ang lakad mo ngayon? Magkikita po kami ni DJ Tapang.
Bakit ba lose? Hindi ka mawala sa isip ko. Kailangan na kita makalimutan.
Panalo o talo, it's you! Weeknights pagkatapos ng Mi Esperanza. Dito lang sa Net25, Prime Time ng Pamilya.
Ano ang pinakamalaking mammal? Blue whale. So, sinasagot ko lang kasi alam ko hindi mo alam.
Boyfriend ko nga po pala, si Jepoy. May maayos ka bang trabaho?
Nag-aayos po ako ng aircon.
Makakapanayan po natin ang isang star witness sa isang hold-upan na naganap, si alias Boye. Paano ka nakarating doon?
Kasi sir...
Christopher!
Ay, teka muna. Sino yun?
Nay!
Sino naman yung kausap mo, Christopher?
Huwag din tawagin yung pangalan ko, Nay.